So today I want to talk about the two opposing opinions concerning women's suffrage during the 1850s and use them to find the bias of a piece of propaganda from that time period. Okay, so let's look at what we have here. A woman's mind magnified. It shows us what women were believed to think about during the 1800s. The first selection of objects are easy to identify, showing us that women only think about clothes, men, marriage, and gifts. But what about the letters in her mind? What do they represent? Well, they could be love letters. Maybe they represent politics or education. It is likely that they represent social interactions, or better yet, social status. Now that we've analyzed our picture a little, here are some arguments for supporting women's suffrage. Now, I have collected a selection of primary sources that we can use to find what people believed that led them to have certain opinions. My first source is a speech by John Stuart Mill at the Great Meeting in favor of women's suffrage. You can pause this video to read the source before I break it down, but here are the arguments that John brings to the table. Number 1. Suffrage is needed for self-protection, and that applies to everybody, including women. And 2. In court, judges are biased towards men, and those who sexually abuse a woman are punished less than a common thief. My next source is an excerpt from a Times article featuring Mr. Redmond and Mr. Bottomley, explaining their views on women's suffrage. Again, pause if you need to. They argue that anyone without the ability to influence the government they're under is a slave, and that women are no exception. They also argue that women would take an interest in politics if they were given the chance. My next sources contain anti-suffrage arguments. Here we have a speech to the House of Commons by Mr. William Cremer. His supporting arguments were: first, that women did not understand politics; second, that women did not care for politics; and third, that there were more women than men, and women would not make the right political decisions. Here we have another excerpt from a Times article featuring Mr. Evans, who believed that most women were satisfied with their current position in society, and that it only seemed like all women wanted suffrage only because the ones who were satisfied with their position did not speak out. Now I'd like to come back to this piece of propaganda, a woman's mind magnified. Now, since we know the letters probably represent social interactions or status, that means that politics cannot be found in her mind, nor can self-protection or suffrage. And since the main supporting argument against women's suffrage was that women did not understand or care for politics, then I conclude that the picture is biased against women's suffrage. Thanks for watching.